best things would happen to me. And I'd be like, oh no, I kind of hope that secretly gets cancelled. I just don't think I'm ready. 4th year medical school. It was one of those essay assignments. It's very controversial, but it's an important piece in the medical space. And I got a call to come and meet the head of school. I was terrified. I thought that this veil of almost good enough had just been shattered.
I can see this in myself right now, and I'm like doing the thing and I still feel like, oh, what is enough? Am I the right person? Or what if I get exposed?
That's how so many doctors live their life. They tiptoe around not wanting to do the wrong thing because we're so aware of all the wrong things that we can do and all the ways that we can affect somebody else. That's a part of our clinician conditioning.
To me, it feels like self-abandonment now to not stand up for myself.
You need to show people who you are and what you want. And the way to do that is to ask for it.
Hello, my beautiful friends. My name is Dr. Beck.
And I am Christine Barker, and this is Am I Doing It Wrong? A podcast for doctors by doctors. Every week on the pod, we'll be bringing you conversations which shine light in dark places, normalise the doctor journey, ease unnecessary suffering, and give you actionable steps to thrive in all facets of your life. So grab a cuppa and get cozy for this week's episode of Am I Doing It Wrong?
So hello, welcome back, our beautiful friends, our Dr. Humans, to another episode of the Poddy. And today we have an incredible episode for you. Today we're going to be talking about how we can sabotage ourselves when we don't believe we are good enough. And if you are doing this, you might be missing out on some key opportunities in your life, slowing yourself down, holding yourself back. We really feel that a lot of doctors don't realise that they're doing this, right? You might be going through life just completely unaware that you are in your own way and not believing yourself as much as you could. And so today we really want to bring this top of mind for you. And Beck has just such a wonderful story that really captures this. And the idea is that we're going to share this with you today, try and see yourself in this story, and then we'll unpack what you can do about it so that hopefully after this episode, you can have full self-belief and go forth and achieve all your big goals. So
I honestly feel sad. I feel sad thinking about this story. I think the story really haunts me because it was just a moment where I didn't have my own back, and I carry that forwards each day. You know, if you have these moments of betraying yourself or sabotaging yourself, it really affects the confidence that you feel to go out into the next day, the next week, the next year of your life, and know that you will go and do the wonderful things that you want to do with your day, with your life. So sit with me, grab a cup of tea and listen to my sad story. So we've got to go back to 4th year medical school. It was one of those essay assignments that we were tasked to write. And I can't remember the exact umbrella for this essay, but it was in that, med school domain of ethics or professionalism. I just finished a placement, a sort of rural regional placement with the most amazing country GP practice. It was a GP couple, husband and wife, and they were managing the GP needs of this whole town. They had the practice, they had the nursing home, and then they also had the sort of urgent care centre attached to it too. They also had young kids at home, horses to care for, and they were just like super interesting people. They were the kind of people who just like went and did wild things on the weekend. I feel like that's like classic rural regional GPs. They're always so interesting. So anyway, they had the full shabam, or, as my partner's been calling it, the full catastrophe going on. And I was sitting with one of the GPs. They were patients behind, and one of his patients had just started breaking down in the consult. The GP was madly trying to solve the medical issue that had come up, as well as trying to manage their emotional distress. And they'd sent me out to go and check on the patient having an asthma attack that they'd been managing in the urgent care centre on oxygen and nebs. And I remember having a little flicker of thought where I was like, oh, they weren't very compassionate to that patient's distress that they brought up. And my brain offered me that thought. And very quickly, there wasn't any judgment in my body for how that GP had managed that situation. I was walking down the corridor past just this line of patients waiting to see them as they were running behind, knowing that they had this sick patient in the urgent care. I had a complex patient in front of them medically that was also now a emotionally difficult patient. And I just thought, we are so often taught that the bare minimum for doctors is to be compassionate. And I just found myself in that situation thinking, it's actually really difficult to hold that really outward, nurturing, patient, calm, compassion space in this setting, right? And we're not even talking about the fact that this is day probably 365 of them holding this town together, right, in terms of their medical needs. So I went home and I wrote my essay on that. This idea that is constantly sort of put onto doctors that it's the bare minimum, the absolute bare minimum to be compassionate. The least that we could do as caring health professionals is to be compassionate when we practice with these people in distress, these vulnerable people, these people in need, because I had always felt that so strongly. But I was also so aware in that moment that being compassionate in that moment was not the bare minimum. It wasn't an easy thing to do. In fact, I'd be very impressed to see somebody hold that focused, calm compassion with all of that on their plate in that moment. So I went and wrote my essay about how actually I think we're asking a lot for doctors to just be compassionate. And I think that when we judge doctors, whether it's us judging our colleagues up or down the hierarchy, or whether it's patients judging us, family and friends, whatever, for not being compassionate in every moment with every person, I think that judgment is not simply reasonable in this case. I'm obviously not saying that I don't think doctors should strive to be compassionate, but I'm saying, or what I was saying in this essay was, maybe we're actually asking a lot of doctors. I wrote my essay just from that place of this personal experience that I had and a bit of an epiphany that I had for myself as somebody who previously would have been judgmental for somebody not being compassionate, particularly a doctor not being compassionate. Submitted the essay and I got a call from the secretary of the school to come and meet the head of school in her office. I was terrified. I had to wait over a week to have this 15-minute meeting with the head of the school who, mind you, was one of the people who I admired the most. I'd been watching her for years. The way she held herself in crises, the way she guided us and kept us on track in terms of what mattered even in the hard times, the way she handled conflicts and disputes. She was somebody I admired so much. And now I'd written this essay that potentially exposed an unfixable part of me, and an ethical professional opinion. They say you can teach hard skills. You can upskill people, you can teach people new things, new skills, people can improve the hard skills, but the soft skills, it's not even soft skills, it's the moral integrity of a person and a person's attitudes. They're much harder to change. And I'd long thought that I was somebody who just barely deserved to be in medical school. And maybe I could stay in medical school and maybe I could finish medical school if I just trained myself enough over these 5 years and actually improved myself enough to become somebody who'd be good enough to be a doctor. And I thought that this veil of almost good enough, almost a pass, had just been shattered. Shaking after over a week of waiting for this meeting, I sat in her office I used to do this awful thing when I was nervous. And when I started speaking, it was something I had to overcome. It was not only, some people's hands shake, some people can feel their heart beating in their chest. My face, I just start to lose total control of the muscles in my face. My lips start to quiver in a visible way. When you're shaking, you're like, I'm shaking, but and then I looked at the video and nobody could tell I was shaking. Like my lip would be like twitching like crazy. My eye, like I'm having a stroke in real time. Seizure, more like it. I was sitting there so aware of my face, just like decompensating, terrified of what was about to happen. And she told me, this essay needs to go in the Medical Journal of Australia. I need you to submit this essay. This is a high achiever thing. I know you guys will resonate with this. When something really good happens to you, but something really good feels like the bare minimum to you, you don't get this sense of like celebration and amazingness when something good happens. With what I was thinking and worried about because of how I thought about myself and how I didn't think I was good enough, all I felt in that moment was relief. Relief that I wasn't actually about to get kicked out of medical school for my moral, ethical, professional, unfixable failings. So, happy story now, right? Happy story. Everything's wonderful. Everything's, better than it could ever be. I'm going to submit this essay to the Medical Journal of Australia. And I'm not from a medical family, public school. Publishing was something that was very scary and foreign to me. So this was a big deal for me to, get to step into this new publishing space. But that wasn't the end of my not good enoughness drama. I went home and eventually, once I'd recovered nervous system wise, I got to work. I took my essay and she said, yeah, we got to make some changes just to make it fit the style of the journal. We'll need some more of this, some less of that, and da-da-da-da-da. So I started reading and researching more, and my essay grew from 2,000 words to 5,000 words to 7 to 10 to 20 to 27 until it was this totally uncontrollable beast. And this was coming from my same not good enoughness of I need to see all the opinions. I need to find all the perspectives. And so I'm going to get all these things and create this great broad view of different ways you can look at this situation and different tools that we can use here. And then I'm going to, synthesize them and take this essay to a place that is really, really powerful. And even as my not good enoughness spiraled me into this overwhelm and this essay becoming this ridiculously tens of thousand word novel, my not good enoughness even blocked me from being able to turn around and correct this, right? I wasn't dead in the water at that point just because I'd blown out the essay, right? I could still bring it back to 1,000-word structure that it needed to be. But because every time I wanted to cut a reference or exclude some perspective, my brain said something like, well, how arrogant of you. Like, what do you know? How can you exclude that perspective? Why do you think that you're able to omit that and include this? And why do you think that you know what's best? Why don't you just keep it all? And then when you come back on another day, when you know more, when you're smarter, when you're better, then make a better decision, but you're not ready yet to make this decision. Who are you to make this decision? Even as, my brain was doing that not good enoughness with the essay, my mentor said to me, she said, come back to me with the next draft. Come back to me if you have any questions. Come back to me when you get stuck. But I even thought my questions weren't good enough. I thought my questions were dumb. I thought my questions were a burden. Every response to every question that I wanted to ask, I came back to myself and said, well, you should really be able to figure that out. That's actually just being very lazy of you to not just figure it out. You can answer that question yourself. Just be proactive here. Don't go and waste her time with these questions that you should be able to answer yourself. And so, in denial, firmly in my not good enoughness, I slowed and eventually I stalled because my opinion wasn't good enough to cut any references or use my discernment to decide what the final perspective is going to be here. And because when I got stuck, I closed off my channel to get outside help from anybody else because I decided my questions, even my questions weren't good enough. And they were just another show of how I wasn't good enough. As I said, I painted this as a very sad story to me. And it's definitely sad from the perspective of an opportunity I missed out on because, I mean, guys, look at the work that I do now. Clearly that was a very integrous moment of me to go and write that piece, right? It's very controversial, but it's an important piece in the medical space. That's not really the biggest thing. The biggest thing that makes me sad about this story is the way that I didn't have my own back in this moment. I didn't allow myself to be the person who did the right thing, the productive thing, the forwards moving thing, the momentum thing, because I was too afraid to make a mistake, to get it wrong, or even to ask a bad question. And the reason behind that was all of those things to me were evidence I was putting out to the world that what I believed was true, that I wasn't good enough.
Yeah, there's so much in that story, Beck, so much. And I think obviously there's a theme of worthiness, like worthiness to take up space, to go and get help. You obviously felt like you didn't want to like take up our precious time and all that stuff asking questions. But there was something in there that I wanted to circle back to, because you were talking about how in the middle of making that essay, there was like almost like a due diligence. Like you were trying to make sure that you captured the truth of the situation in the literature, and you didn't want to have a biased perspective, and so you were gathering all this information. And yes, it was blowing out your word count and you were getting a bit lost in it. But I was thinking about how do you know if you have a not enough problem where you're trying to like overcompensate in that kind of way for your not enough and not feeling worthy enough, as compared to just having high standards?
That question is so to the point, because I used to believe that I just had high standards. That was the positive perspective I had on my not good enoughness that allowed me to keep my not good enoughness and carry it forwards into the future, even after that essay happened, right? Because as you're saying, the thoughts that were going on in my mind when I was, blowing up the essay and doing due diligence was that I was doing a good thing here. I was doing the responsible thing. I was doing the respectful thing. I was doing the humble thing. I was doing the right thing in terms of moving us as close as possible to the truth. The line that I think we want to draw here is not on what is high standards versus what is not enoughness, but looking at how the behaviors that come from those mindsets create the results in your life that are aligned with your values or not aligned with your values. Because I could keep holding that idea that I just have high standards in my life and feel very good theoretically from that perspective. And I did for many years. I defended my diligence and my self-criticism, my hyper-vigilance in life. I defended it for years as something that was giving me my edge. And as you say, something that made me more unbiased, more truthful, more effective in the world. But the truth is, when I looked at my results, this is a great example, the results that this belief, these quote high standards were creating for me, they weren't in my integrity. They kept me sitting on the bench. They kept me sitting out of the game. They kept me sitting out of training days, right? Because my high standards meant that I was too afraid to go out there in the world and make an error, make a mistake, do anything meaningful, and therefore learn and build skills from. It's such a doctor's mindset, isn't it? But aren't these just high standards? And I know you will agree, let's keep our standards high. But for me, and if you look at this story, it's a bit of a fable of the harms that high standards can do. Is it more important to us to hold these very, very high standards, or even just high standards, whatever standards you've got? Is it more important that we hold these standards, or is it more important that we are taking action and contributing and making progress?
Yeah. And oh my goodness, I've got so much coming up, Beck. I've got like 2 different pathways. So sit tight. I'll go down one at a time. The first kind of thing that came to mind is, and I don't want to put you under pressure. We've taken an example from 4th year medical student you, and I'm just like, how does this show up for you in the now? Because I was thinking about, the whole point in this is for everyone to see themselves in this story and identify like where right now we are showing up in this way. YouTube is an example, right? If I'm going to make a YouTube video, I have this thing at the moment where like the YouTube people that tell you how to do a YouTube video, they're like, you need one concept, one question, one answer. That is a 10-minute video. And I'm like, oh, but the Dr. Humans need to know more than that. They need to know this, and this, and this. And so it's like I have trouble reining it in. And so then I get a bit paralyzed and maybe don't make the video. I can see this in myself right now. And I'm like doing the thing and I still feel like, oh, what is enough? So I guess before I come on to my next question, I just wanted to ask you, like, how is this showing up for you in this current version of yourself?
Yeah, thank you. It does still show up. This pattern isn't something that I don't think we ever get to eliminate, but it's something that we get to manage because we're constantly asking the question of, when will I decide to act? When is the right time to act? Because we're not necessarily saying that like, just jump on it, just submit it, just ship it, just go. Like we've all got to find our own integrous line of when is the point that preparation is enough to warrant action for me to make this decision? How much risk am I willing to accept on the other side? What am I willing to accept on the other side in terms of what goes wrong? Because I'd acted before I was, quote, perfectly ready. Even though a part of the point is right here, guys, this idea of being perfectly ready is a total fallacy. We never get to be perfectly ready. However, I used to believe that as a sweet little medical student. Today, as a 31-year-old doctor, I don't believe in this concept of being perfectly ready or perfect action anymore. But that doesn't mean that my brain isn't still caught up in this sweet fantasy of if I just act at the right time and if I just prepare enough, then I can prevent the bad things happening at the other side. And remember, the bad things happening, they're only bad things because of what we make them mean. So this not enoughness is still something that I manage in my life. When a big opportunity comes in my life, the first feeling that I get only in the last year is coming to be excitement. But even just a year ago, the best things would happen to me. And I'd be like, oh no, I kind of hope that secretly gets cancelled. I kind of hope that maybe they sent the email to the wrong person. I kind of hope they're not really asking for me to do that because I just don't think I'm ready. Like, give me a couple more years and I will perfect this and do that and I'll become more of this. Then I'll take the opportunity. The main thing for us to work on here is not our preparation and not even our confidence, but it's on thinking about our identity in when things go wrong. Because for me, the worst thing that could happen in that example with the essay or, this recent example with beautiful opportunities coming to me in life is that I will take the opportunity and not only will I mess it up, not do it justice, but in that opportunity, in the risks that come with that opportunity, I will expose myself as somebody who, in fact, is not good enough. In fact, is not the right person for the job. In fact, of course she did it wrong, right? Because she wasn't good enough for this. It's very interesting for me that we are sitting around waiting for opportunities in our lives and where we think that the best thing ever that could happen to us is for somebody to give us that sparkly, amazing opportunity. But the truth is, when the opportunity lands in your lap, it often feels like a terrifying risk that you don't want to execute on. And that is a mindset and also an emotional, energetic pattern that I'm still trying to iterate on and improve on in my life so that I can live the biggest life possible.
Oh, that's so perfect because that was exactly where I wanted to go. You've captured it so beautifully, but I was going to make the point that when you get that opportunity that you really want and it's so exciting and you don't actually feel ready for it and you actually start dreading it and kind of like, oh God, like the reality of executing on the opportunity, there is this kind of beautiful tango, a little bit of a dance with the not enough, because like if you do say yes to the opportunity by just showing up within that feeling of not being ready and just feeling like, am I the right person? Or what if I get exposed? Because that's what you're saying. That's where that comes from. It's this risk of like, oh, what if I get exposed as not enough, or, you know, embarrass myself and all that stuff. But ultimately, I think that it's inside the opportunity. It's inside the thing that you don't quite feel ready for, or you're trying to overcompensate on. When you start doing the thing, there's like a skill set and a belief that happens in there that I feel like is uniquely formed in there. So it's almost like there's this thing where you got to say yes to those things. But then, like you said, yes as a medical student, and then you got a bit lost in it and then didn't quite come out the other side of it. Yeah, sabotaged it. It's very delicate, isn't it? Because there can be like a beautiful transformation in there where you become, or you sort of convince yourself, start to believe, get confidence ultimately in doing the thing. But then you can get lost as well. So how do you not get lost?
What you're pointing out is really, you're showing us your very productive mindset and very resilient mindset at this stage, because you're like, when I just start taking the opportunity, then I show myself that I can do it. I show myself that I'm good enough and that I'm safe here. But you can see in my story from medical school, I was taking the action, I was doing the thing, but I ended up sabotaging myself and aborting that opportunity because my belief that I wasn't good enough prevailed despite that wonderful opportunity. And notice, despite other people who I admired and like people in a higher position in the hierarchy who they're sort of crowned as the people who can say, yes, you are good enough, right? That wasn't enough. We all think that we need somebody else to tell us that we're good enough, to validate, yes, you're ready, yes, you're good enough. But even with that validation, even with that permission and even encouragement, it didn't matter. It didn't make a difference because my belief that I wasn't good enough wasn't there. So even though I was taking the action, I started taking the action. My belief is what stopped me. I wasn't lacking any permission or encouragement or validation that I was good enough from outside, from other people, but I hadn't addressed my belief. And what you're describing, Christine, is somebody who's able to manage their mindset and manage the difficult emotions that come up when we're taking risks, aka opportunities, right? Even if you are granted an opportunity when you haven't kind of done the background practice, it's a fork in the road moment. You'll either be the person who ends up being able to take that opportunity and even maximize it and make it some roll-on thing to the next thing that you're made for or meant for. Or you'll take that opportunity and from not good enoughness, you'll stay small in it, you'll play safe in it, and you won't maximize the opportunity. Or worse, like me, you'll just abandon the opportunity altogether because the risk is too high. And this is why I think it's not just about taking action. Being somebody who takes opportunities, what it really requires, because opportunities always come dressed up as risk. Even the most sparkly opportunities, the ones you've been longing for forever, they come dressed up as risk. What you need in your mindset and your energy is the ability to fail and not destroy yourself over failing. Because if you're the kind of person who destroys yourself over failing like me, I was the kind of person who, if I stuff this up, that would just be another piece of evidence, a nail in the coffin that I wasn't good enough. That was a potential truth that I just couldn't face. So it was safer for me to abandon. We need to become the kind of people who can stuff it up, who can fail, who can even just stuff up the whole opportunity in order to be the person who can take the opportunity in the first place. And that's really about how you treat yourself when things go wrong.
Maybe a little bit off topic, but it is to do with not enough. And I was thinking about how, for everyone listening, obviously seeing yourself in a story where your career is concerned, But I know that the not enough stuff was palpable for me inside relationships and about 300 million other places in my life. Like the not enough stuff, it shows up everywhere. Like when you start doing self-development, you're like, oh God,
This again.
it's a can of worms.
I thought I dealt with
This
that.
again. Right? Every time I get coached from you, I end up at, oh, I'm not enough about that too. I'm laughing because my current partner, right, the version of him that he gets, because I've been playing this not enough game for a wee while now, maybe a couple of years ago actually, we were out in a shopping centre and there was someone trying to get by and he said to me, you know, Christine, you're in the way, get out of the way, as if the woman needs to get by. Now, like maybe I was in the way, but also she's another person, maybe she was in the way, right? So the response that he got, like previous Christine would have been like, oh, I'm in the way, oh, I'm taking up space, oh no, I better get out of the way. Current Christine's like, turns to him calmly and says, I'm enough and I'm not in the way, and then sidesteps to let the lady. And that's what he's dealing with. It's like this beautiful, and I think we can apply it to lots of different parts of our life, like as in people at work who, you know, difficult work colleagues or like relationship stuff that comes up. And I guess it still comes back to what you're saying, because to feel confident enough to say that, you're taking the risk that you're going to upset someone or, you know, but to me, it feels like self-abandonment now to not stand up for myself in that kind of little interaction. But it's funny, once you start playing that, like looking for where you feel not enough and then changing the narrative, it's actually, yeah, it's everywhere, but it can be really empowering to sort of start to play with it, engage with it and make changes.
I think we don't realize how significant these small behaviors like that are, because what would be happening in my mind if somebody said you're in the way? And I had to work to find this, because in that feeling, if somebody had said to me, you know, this past version of me who was never good enough, you're in the way, the feeling would have been, the deep down feeling would have been shame. And that's because, as you say, I'm taking up space. Essentially, though, I'm doing the wrong thing. You know, I'm out here in the world interacting with other people and I'm being inconsiderate. I'm not being aware of my surroundings. I'm imposing on somebody, right? I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm doing it wrong. I am wrong. That is the default mode that so many of us are in whenever we see an opportunity. We're looking, we're anticipating the ways that we can do it wrong, that we can get it wrong. And that's why beautiful opportunities feel like risks. And that's why in moments where, you know, we have an opportunity to take up space or stand out, we don't want to as a default, because we don't want to do it wrong, because doing it wrong just reinforces that, oh yes, there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. It's really profound to me that you can physically, when you look at you behaving differently in that moment, you did the same thing in both situations. You would have reflexively moved out of the way to try to fix like the problem that you were, you know, back in the day. But in this case, you still moved out of the way. You did the same thing. The difference was why you did it. The difference was how you thought about yourself and how you treated yourself. In one situation, you're making yourself wrong. And worse than that, we're defaulting to the fact that we're doing something wrong. That's how so many doctors live their life. They tiptoe around not wanting to do the wrong thing because we're so aware of all the wrong things that we can do and all the ways that we can affect somebody else. And that's a part of our clinician conditioning. In the other scenario, you don't automatically make yourself wrong. You allow yourself to exist in the world. You allow yourself to even be doing the wrong thing. But it doesn't become like, say you were in this person's path of walking, say you were, quote, in their way. It doesn't then take the next step. It doesn't go to that default place that so many of our brains do of like, oh, and that means I'm wrong. That means I'm doing the wrong thing. Something's wrong with me. It's a completely different place to live your life from, even though essentially to the outside eye, you're behaving in the same way.
It's so beautiful. So I really enjoyed this conversation. It went a few places I didn't expect it to go, which is always great. It was super fun. Thanks, Beck, for all your wizardry. And I think just thinking back to little medical student you, it's so clear that your GPS tracker, your true north, was always the thought wizard thing. Always thought leadership, thinking outside the box. It's so beautiful that you've kind of stayed on that path. And it's really funny to sort of think about past Beck and how different she was. So
yeah, it's really funny. It was kind of there. Like I always had different scary opinions the wanted to question things, but it was too scary. So I'm glad that I built the skills to do it. And I guess on that note, guys, I think a message that I like to leave with this story is not only was it not the lack of opportunity that held me back in this case, I got the quote, the big opportunity. I got given this wonderful opportunity that I could just walk into without having to fight for it or work for it or anything. But it was the little tiny daily things that I did that actually had me shoot myself in the foot. And on the flip side, if you want to be somebody who receives really big opportunities, if you're waiting for your big break, if you're like, I've had my head down, I've been working hard, been being humble, I've been being the quiet achiever that, doctors are taught to be, I want you guys to realize that opportunities really are just given to you because you've got your head down and you're working hard and you're being a good doctor. But opportunities come to the people who take the little tiny daily micro opportunities. It's when you are the person who asks the question, when you are the person who speaks up, when you are the person who steps out of the box. I'm not saying this because you're sort of being some disruptor of the industry or anything like that, but literally just showing yourself to the world. Showing the world with your questions, with your comments, with how you behave that's different from other people, just showing people who you are. When roles arise, when we need somebody for something, you will stand out for who you are. Not because you've had this particular achievement, blah, 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 or anything like that, but because people will see who you are on a daily basis. That is how the most aligned, too good to be true opportunities come to you, because you've shown people who you are and then you get opportunities that match who you're being. When you're being yourself, then the opportunities that come to you will be perfectly aligned. And it's not just showing yourself, but it's also, I wasn't ready to write that essay. I wasn't ready to make the decisions for that essay and submit the essay because I hadn't done the work before that point to practice failing, to practice getting things wrong, to practice disagreeing with people, to practice having a different opinion. I truly hadn't earned it yet. I hadn't done the work. I hadn't done it in the micro moments of my days. So I was still terrified of any of those things happening, right? I hadn't built the skill set. I hadn't earned it. And that's the really hard truth for little fourth year me. I hadn't earned it. So the other thing that being yourself on a daily basis and taking opportunities, even just to speak, that feel risky is you're practicing risk. You're practicing putting yourself out there, putting yourself at risk. And even better, you're practicing stuffing it up and then recovering and teaching yourself that true self-trust and self-confidence. So taking these micro opportunities, that's the path to getting the big aligned opportunities. If you're sitting around thinking, I've done everything right, why haven't I got the opportunity yet? A really hard thing to look at is maybe I haven't earned it. I got that opportunity and I hadn't earned it, so I couldn't execute on it. Don't let that happen to you. I certainly won't be letting it happen again.
I love that, Vic. And I think just that word earned there, I feel like what I was hearing when you said the word earned is like you just haven't put yourself forwards. Like you just haven't dipped your toes in. The people that I know wanting a job somewhere and they're not putting themselves forward. So there's earning in the way that you were saying in terms of building the skill set on the micro level, like learning to fail, learning to feel uncomfortable and trusting yourself. And then there's just like that, but also you know exactly what the step is and you're just skirting around it. Earning things, it's an interesting word, but I think it means more, I guess is what I'm saying is that people deserve it. You're worthy of it already. Are you actually just like turning that into an opportunity? Because you've got everything that you currently need and you just need to actually get started.
100%. We're all worthy. 100% worthy. Already done. No question. Oh, and you need to show people who you are and what you want. And the way to do that is to ask for it. And the way to do that is be willing to be told no.
Love it so much. So we so hope that this was helpful. And if you have any stories you want to share, please feel free to add them in the comments below. We love to hear from you, or give us a little emoji if this episode was helpful. And of course, and we would absolutely love if you could give us a rating and review. You would be the absolute best if you did that. We adore you.
We know that we need to change the culture in medicine to allow for more humanness to come through in medicine. And if you're able to give us a review, it means the podcast gets shared with so many more doctors. So if this is meaningful to you and if you want to thank us or support us, a review is the most meaningful thing you can do. And we thank you so much.
Thanks so much, guys. And we'll see you in the next episode. Have a great week. Bye.
We get so many heartfelt thank yous from our fellow doctors for having these vulnerable conversations on this public podcast. If you want to say thank you too, we would be most appreciative if you left our podcast a review. Reviews actually mean everything to us because they're what make the platform share this podcast with all the other Dr. Humans. And our mission is to make as many Dr. Humans as we can reach feel more human. Just go to the podcast app, click on the show, and find the option to review. The other way you can help us is just by sharing the podcast with someone in your life who you know will say, thank you for saying that, or tagging us on social media. And if you're in healthcare looking for speakers for your next event, or professionals who actually get it to facilitate the vulnerable conversations our teams of doctors need, request us through podcastfordoctors@gmail.com.